Hey guys, welcome back to another week of at Ping. Got a few questions for you. Let's get started. First one coming to us from Reed. It says, Ping, why is there all this focus on coaching and training for average motocross riders? I understand at the pro level, but for the average guy, seems like they would be better off just trail riding than spending all this money and time on drills. The trails are truly the best turn tracks and give the rider a chance to practice all the fundamentals. Your thoughts? Good work on the Travis Pastrana show. Love hearing from guys that are passionate about having fun on motorcycles. Thanks, Reed. Reed, I would tell you that fundamentals are important regardless of the sport that you're participating in. But especially in motocross, because fundamentals, allow you to develop and become a better rider, faster rider, but more importantly, a safer rider. If you are doing the wrong things technique-wise, it doesn't matter how much time you spend on the trails, you're still doing it wrong. So you need somebody to help you with those fundamentals, those basic skills, basic technique that you can build from. It's super important. You can still get hurt on the trails if you don't know what you're doing. And when you do drills specifically focusing on a certain thing, you tend to pick that up better. If I just say to you, hey, while you're riding in the trails today, remember to stay on the balls of your feet. Well, you're going to get into the trees or get going, you're going to completely forget about that. Or if you go out and you say, okay, today I'm just working on riding on the balls of my feet, well, then you'll work on it and eventually that will become habit. So anyway, it's still very important. So that's my take. Okay, second one. It comes from DW in South Carolina. It says, Ping, love the show, but have two questions. In the episode from 121, is that a Carmanguia behind you? What year is it? I really appreciate the balanced perspective you provide. Thanks, DW in South Carolina. Yes, I pulled the cover off for this question because I wanted to show you. This actually has a really cool story. It's a 72 Carmanguia. This was bought brand new by my grandpa in 1972. And it was remained in his possession for, gosh, I don't know how many years, a long time. And then eventually he got too old, didn't drive it. The whole inside's original too. Little peek in there. 35,000 miles on this thing, original. And then, anyway, he gave it to my mom. My mom restored it. And she finally, it's not a real good Montana car. You can only drive it a couple months out of the year. So it was kind of rotting because it was sitting so much again. So she gave it to me. So a lot of sentimental value in that thing. All my grandfather, who's been passed away now for 15 years plus, his name's all and signatures all on the paperwork. So pretty cool car and family heirloom for me. So thanks for noticing it. And yeah, pretty sweet car. All right, last question says, hey, Ping, I have a couple questions for you, mate. But first, can you please get Brandis on the Whiskey Throttle show? I have a few memories seeing him as a kid on the Primal Impulse Suzuki with you, and the more shows you do, it seems more and more people have a wild story or two involving him. If so, sounds like could be a favorite of mine already. All right, questions. And I will reach out to Brandis. I recently got his number from another fireman buddy of mine, so I do have his number. I'll see what I can do. Here's his questions. One, you got to race almost all of the brands of bikes. Did you ever get approached to ride a Yamaha at all, being that they're the title sponsor of your show? I'll answer these one at a time. So no, it's the only manufacturer I didn't ride for in my career. Suzuki, Honda, Kawasaki, KTM. Never rode for Yamaha. One year I did talk to Yamaha of Troy. I think Phil Alderton was still managing, and the timing just wasn't right. They were full. And I want to say I ended up, maybe that was the year I ended up at Primal. I left Honda, was looking for something different, and wound up there. Anyway, interesting that now I'm partnered with Yamaha, and those guys have been such a good partner. Number two, being that you got to ride for a number of teams, I was wondering what it's like when your tenure comes to an end with a team. Is it awkward at all, or is it more clean your locker out, shake hands with everyone, and it's more of a cordial deal? It is super awkward. Happened to me multiple times, obviously at Mitch's. I was there 3 years, but kind of after that last year, sometimes you just get to a point where there's nothing really wrong, but you're not producing the results they want, and things have gotten stale for you there. And so you just move on, and look at like Jason Anderson. I don't think he was really unhappy with anything at Husqvarna. Those guys had a great relationship, but he just wanted a fresh environment. And look what it's done for him. I mean, he is on fire this year. I was going to make a joke about the smoke coming out of his bike last weekend. I'm just going to leave that alone. But it's totally weird. And there's a number of factors that go into why it's so weird. Like at Pro Circuit, my mechanic, they had just hired on Nick Way. So my mechanic went to him, Kenny G, and I ended up with a different mechanic, or whoever my mechanic was went to him, and I ended up with like a fill-in mechanic for the last 2 rounds. So that was weird. And then, they're talking to another rider or whatever, or they've already signed them. So then you just, you feel like a stranger in your own truck. It's a really very strange elephant in the room. The vibe changes with your mechanic, changes with the team manager. It's just weird. These guys that do sign deals in like April or May and have to go through the whole summer with that team, that would be really weird. For me, it was always pretty late in the summer. Okay, last question. Question 3. Now that 125s aren't really raced on a pro level anymore outside the EMX series, was there any wild mods or tuning things that any of the teams did to make them a rocket ship that general fans of that era would never have known? Not really. The development on the 2-strokes got so far down the road that it was like a lot of little things, Of course, jetting and carburetors. I can't tell you how many different carburetors we try. 36, 37, 36 intake, bored out to a 38, on the backside of it. So there's all kinds of different little tricks, but there's nothing that I would tell you that was like, oh, we did this one thing and it was huge. Some of the things that came to mind for me was carbs, air boots, a lot of different shaped air boots, Venturis that they would stick in there, that kind of stuff. They would, a lot of times I remember Mitch puttying up cylinder ports. If they came too big, and especially for Supercross, he's trying to create more bottom and a different feel, they would putty up all those cylinder ports and then reshape them the way he wanted them. And I remember we had a couple race bikes. We had to keep a really close eye on them because sometimes when the putty, if it got too hot, the putty would come out and you could wind up with a bike that didn't run right. But there was a lot of that. I tried a 20-inch front wheel one year and really liked that in Supercross. Just kind of left a bigger footprint on the ground, and for hard slick stuff, it was really good. I think the biggest thing was probably suspension. Guys like, Ricky makes fun of me because I always told him it was the RC show when he was at Pro Circuit. But he had work suspension after the first year. And, if you ask Mitch, well, like, hey, I want some of that. He's like, well, go win an outdoor title and we'll talk. So that's just how it goes, The guys who are winning or in championship contention tend to get better parts. And there are some, like to this day, Mitch has a YZ250 pipe. I think Villapoto's talked about this before, that makes crazy amount of horsepower above and beyond what their rack pipe makes. And I've said to Mitch, why don't you just sell this stuff? What are you waiting for? Why are you sitting on it? Just sell it as the RV pipe, and you wouldn't be able to keep them in stock. He's like, well, I like to keep a little something in my back pocket or whatever. I don't know if he thinks they'll come back or what, but anyway, interesting stuff. That was from Matt down in Oz. So Matt, thanks for the questions. I appreciate it. Very interesting, good questions. Appreciate you guys' support. We'll see you next week for another At Ping.